Hey everybody, this is Kohdok here, and wow, we have finally hit 50,000 subscribers. I mean, I do kind of feel like it took me way too long to get to that number, but, you know, it took me considerably less time to go from 20k to 50k as it did to go from 0k to 20k, so I'm thankful for that. It means we're halfway to getting a fancy button that I can put on the couch. That'll be very nice. Anyway, like I said, upon hitting 50,000 subscribers, I would do an Ask Me Anything. I put that proposal up several months ago, and it hit that a couple of weeks ago, and so here we are. Speaking of, I'm sorry there hasn't been any content lately. I have been spending the past couple of weeks moving my elderly mother cross-country so that she can be closer to her kids and grandkids, so I'm sorry that took so long to get mentioned, but you know, it's just common sense rule. Don't tell anybody you're going on a trip until you come back from it. But anyway, 50,000 subscribers to talk about my channel. My channel has been doing a lot of... It's changed a lot. It's old. It's like at least 12 years old now, I think. I didn't do a 10th anniversary special or anything, but you know, it started off doing like Bakugan, then it moved on to toys in general, and now it's kind of focused on trading card games, although occasionally my other videos for other random topics get a spike here and there, so it's been a bit of a chaotic time, and I wonder if maybe that's one of the reasons I haven't done so much, is I haven't had a channel that's like laser focused on one thing. Makes me wonder if I should do 7 Deadly Sins as its own channel, but anyway, like I said, we were doing an A.M.A. I've been gathering these. You've had a couple of weeks to put in some questions, and I've picked out a number of them here that I have some solid answers to, and we might as well begin with, are you ever going to review insert game here? Maybe? Yeah, this was easily the most common question, was people asking if I've played a certain game or if I'm going to review a certain game, and it depends on a number of factors. I don't make too much money doing the YouTube video, so it's not that easy for me to necessarily always get in the games that people want me to talk about. It's one of the reasons the P.O. Box exists, is so anybody can send me something unsolicited as long as it's not alive, perishable, or illegal. You can send me like anything you want through the P.O. Box. It's like, I wonder what his take would be on this. You can just toss it to me and I'll at least give it a look. But the types of games I want to talk about are either ones where I can add something to the conversation of that game, or where the game itself adds something to my conversation. For instance, most recently I did the video about Disney Villainous because it allowed me to go at length about counterplay, which is, you know, how interesting are mechanics to play against. It's why banned and restricted lists exist, because if a certain deck just does not allow any counterplay against it, that makes a really dull gaming environment. Like I said, it's not something that's talked about. Apparently my channel is fairly unique in that it takes a bird's eye view of trading card games in general. Apparently most channels, their videos will fixate on like maybe one or two games, but they don't like do like an overview of the genre the way so many channels do video games and books and movies and TV shows, all of that. Apparently I'm the first one to really try that with trading card games, so that's certainly fun. Like I said, to review a game, it has to move a needle somewhere, otherwise, you know, it's like, oh, this is just Magic again, oh, this is just Ascension again, you know. Otherwise, you know, it's not going to be anything too exciting to talk about. But if it gives me something to talk about, like if it has, like, an interesting product lineup, if it has some rules that are a bit strange, if it allows me to talk about concepts like counterplay, then those are the ones that I personally prefer to review. Like I said, it's not always easy to get the physical games in hand. Remy's Creepy Corner asks, do you think it's possible for another card game to join the Big Three? By Big Three, of course, they are talking about Pokemon, Magic, and Yu-Gi-Oh!, which are by far the 3 most popular trading card games available. They are known as the Big Three because they're basically the games that have defined each era of trading card games. Like Magic the Gathering defined the Wild West by being the first one. Pokemon reinvigorated the genre by connecting it to a popular product, and Yu-Gi-Oh! shook up the base again by having its own like merchandise-driven show connected to its product. So each of them represent a fairly large and substantial shift in the market. And for something to join the Big Three, I mean, if I wanted to make a joke, oh, there's only room for 3 of them there, one of them would have to suffer some kind of catastrophic sudden collapse in order for that to happen. But I mean, we've seen that happen. Digimon and Dragon Ball are certainly trying. However, another thing that's worth mentioning about the big three is that they're all backed by pretty substantial companies. Like, we're talking Hasbro and Konami and, of course, Pokemon Company International. Dragon Ball and Digimon are both made by Bandai. So those are large companies with a pretty good track record, so it is pretty easy for their games to be picked up by like stores, distributors, places like Target and Walmart. They have a lot easier time getting a foothold into buildings. So in order for something to compete, it would probably have to be something as backed by as substantial a company. I know it's a dream for a lot of people to do like a small independent game that someday gets like a whole bunch of sales in Walmart and Target, but you're gonna have to do something pretty serious for that to happen. I mean, there's definitely an appetite out there for new games and experiences, I find. Although the big surge in 2020, 2021 did not help with confidence with new things, because it's like, oh, look at how big Pokemon's numbers are right now. You're gonna have to match that in order to do that. It's like the SpongeBob problem with Nickelodeon. Like, they'd cancel shows that wouldn't like immediately do SpongeBob's number, and that's how they lost Adventure Time. But another thing that the like a game with a big three quality would have is it has to be a game with a low barrier to entry, but a good amount of depth afterwards. Like a game like I've talked about Duel Masters. Duel Masters is still really huge in Japan. It didn't do well in America. I think it, one, launched with a bad window, and two, was kind of treated poorly by the people who brought it out. But a game that's easy to learn so that you can develop a huge player population really fast, but which has a lot of depth, which keeps people, you know, involved. Like a lot of people talk about how games have like, you know, like an easy combat system. You can mash the button and get through the game, but there's a lot of depth. You can learn like a bunch of cool moves and tricks and combos to really get things going. Like, you know, I'm sure if I say to some people the seductive words negative edging, I'm sure some of you know what that means. I'm sure a lot of you don't, but the people who know what it means kind of know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about how something can have hidden depth. But yeah, if anything were to join the big three, it would probably need a pretty substantial push. Like, it would need like a strong media push. It would need to have like easy, straightforward rules that you can teach somebody in 5 minutes. See my Beavis and Butthead discussion before. And like I said, it would probably need the backing of a major company. So you'd probably have to find like somebody out there who's not making their card games and it's like, hey, do you want us to make a card game for you? It might be that, but like an up and comer out of nowhere, I think the chances are mild. Like Flesh and Blood and MetaZoo, I know about those two, but they're kind of muddying the waters with some of how they got to their level of prominence. So we'll have to see if they actually have like the staying power to back up their early success. Ace Hero asks, how do you think other media should match up to the card game it's related with? The question is a bit vague in its wording. I assume it's asking, you know, how should merchandise-driven media be handled? He uses card games as an example, but merchandise-driven media in general is kind of the same way. My statement is pretty straightforward. The merchandise itself is not the story. The merchandise is the medium through which you tell a story. So a lot of the shows I've noticed that have a decent amount of staying power tend to like feature a product that, you know, the kids are obviously supposed to go out and buy, but which tell a story on top of that. I mean, it's how we get a show featuring cool giant animal robots that is also about, you know, the tensions that can lead up to war. Is how we get a magical girl show, which is about, you know, people's personal struggles, because the bad guys can make monsters out of people who are brokenhearted. And yes, a show about a children's card game with the nature of how high-stakes games tend to reveal people's real character. Yes, that's the theme of the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Before it became all about the card game. The whole theme of like the shadow games was how playing these games would force crooked people to reveal like the true nastiness within about themselves. They would always break the rules, which would get them punished in a penalty game. So That's how Yu-Gi-Oh! Started, and I'd say a decent amount of that carried over to the card game show as well, as it was about, it's sort of testing people's, like, true character rather than just being all about the cards. That's why, you know, the original Wii-Cross was about this too, and the most recent Wii-Cross is kinda dull because it doesn't even try to be anything like the original. Banan Ivatkuli asks, what's your favorite Pokemon?
You have to ask.
Juan Pablo Lamas says, what's the biggest red flag you're wary about when checking out a TCG? From an advertising perspective, I would say a game that boasts about how much value are in their cards rather than talking about like the actual gameplay, the actual fun, or like the lore or the artwork. If they talk about how much, you know, how much value their game has because their game is like this cynical Jimothy thing created to try to lure in people who want to invest in the game, that's always a red flag because it tells me that they probably cut a bunch of corners somewhere and that the game's not really fun. From a design perspective, I would say it is games that use rock, paper, scissors as an absolute rather than merely an advantage. There are a lot of games out there, like there's one with Penguins, where the whole idea is there's a rock, paper, scissors mechanic, and if you win rock, paper, scissors, then you just win automatically, and nothing else on the card really matters, and that's, you know, really dull. But if you look at games like Pokemon, which have weakness, which give the opponent an advantage but not the win, or Dinosaur King actually had this mechanic where you played a dinosaur and then you played a move to power up that dinosaur. However, whoever's dinosaur loses the game of rock, paper, scissors has to play their power-up move first, meaning that the opponent has the advantage of choosing how to respond. That's an example of a rock, paper, scissors system that gives an advantage, but isn't an absolute win. Rock, paper, scissors is such a frequent, such a lazy game design mechanic. I hate it. Calcium says, I don't think you've talked about card game preservation before. Video game preservation is a hot topic, but no one seems to mention trading card games or even board games. I'd like to know what you thought about the topic. Yes, believe it or not, yes. That is something that I have wanted to do. Is I know there's Board Game Geek, but it's actually kind of like a dream of mine, and somebody else asks, what is your dream collab? And I'd say yes, it would definitely be a project to archive card games and trading card games, like have a setup where that people like scan in the mats and the rule books and finding like how to play videos and stuff like that. It's basically part of the inspiration behind the Huntic Mega. I made the Huntic Mega for the box of junk, but in there you will find like everything you need to play the game except for the cards. Part of it is it's really tricky for copyright. That's a thing that's been a huge hot topic on video game preservation as well. A lot of people want to hang on to the copyrights and they don't want people preserving the games, even though they're technically not losing sales because they don't have the game for sale legally anywhere anyway. Like the Hunting Mega, I would totally love to make like an archive of trading card games, even if all we archive are like the rules and the playmats and the tools needed for players to play the game if they find the cards. I mean, I guess if we got like the blessing of some designers to also archive the cards, that would be something. But yeah, preserving the rules and the like the playmats and all that, I would absolutely love to do that. I would love to build like a true, genuine like game archive, like a trading card game Gutenberg or something, or archive.org or something. Like I said, the Hunting Mega is part of that. I would love to see more things like that. Like if I could just make a network of megas, then I'd probably do that. Maxo asks, do you have good recommendations for getting home trading card games printed professionally? Professional printing is usually something that requires a substantial bulk order. Like you'd have to get like thousands upon thousands of product in order to actually get your game made like truly professionally, like either through Cardamundi or through one of the dozens of cheap print shops you can get access to in China. I mean, a lot of those print shops make like counterfeit Pokemon cards. I'm sure they'd love to make something for the same low quality above board, but for like a homemade trading card game, your best bet is still probably a print-on-demand service. It's not cheap, you're not going to make money doing it, but print-on-demand means that you can make cards as you need them, and that is a huge advantage. You don't have to worry about stock, you don't have to make a huge initial order. Like I said, you're not going to make money, although I have found like some life hacks for GameCrafter in particular. Like GameCrafter, if you want to do booster packs on GameCrafter, the cards and the packaging, the actual like envelope inside which the cards are sent, are actually two separate things on there. So if on a lot of these games, if you just nix the box, if you nix the packaging, if you make it so that it's like only the cards, only the internal components that basically ship in an envelope and the players get to put that together, that usually shaves a bundle off of how much your products will cost. So that's a neat little life hack. If your goal is to really get your game out there, make it accessible so that people can play it, those package-free editions of the game are definitely a way to get some rapid attention. Andrew Senabutar asks, what advice would you give to a young adult in college that wants to start playing TCGs? Which game do I start, cheapest and or easiest to play, and what product to buy? If you are in a college town, odds are good there is a game store near where you are. I don't think I've visited a college town that doesn't have like a designated game store. If you go there and ask what people really like to play, usually there is somebody there who is willing to teach you how to play a game. Like I said, if you're in college, there is bound to be a group of people who is playing some kind of game out there. All of them tend to be pretty cheap to enter. I don't know if Magic still does like the little freebie starter decks. Some game stores, they get like the demo kits for Magic to help people play. But any of the big three tend to be pretty cheap. I mean, for ease of learning, I still say Duel Masters or Kaijudo. You can still get those cards for fairly cheap. But that's if it's like an independent effort because you can't find a game store where anybody plays any of the big three. Otherwise, I would say figure out what other people are playing, and most of the time people will show you how to play. The big three all have something in common in that they're all fairly simple to learn. Yu-Gi-Oh's depth has gone kind of insane, but Pokemon and Magic have stayed fairly consistent in being pretty easy to understand in their standard. With Magic, you really only get into trouble if you go into like Modern or Commander. Otherwise, any of the big three will do ya. Prudy Baby says, you've mentioned Dungeons & Dragons before, so I'm curious if you play it or other tabletop RPGs often, and if you have a favorite character or game system. I have played Dungeons & Dragons since high school, and right now I am actually currently the Dungeon Master of a Curse of Strahd campaign. Ooh! In fact, what I'm wearing right now is the hat I put on when it's Dungeon Master time, so currently I am on the other end there. I would love to do a video about my dungeon mastering style. I don't know how many people would want to see it, but my dungeon mastering style is very different. Like, the best description I've heard for Dungeons & Dragons is cooperative storytelling, and it's the job of the dungeon master to make sure that everybody is having fun, which can involve going off the rails, it can involve indulging a crazy player idea, although do not feel ashamed to punish mistakes. But the biggest thing I have learned for dungeon mastering is, even though most dice rolls tend to be in black and white absolutes, either you succeed or you fail, treating like actual situations and encounters as either you succeed or you fail, like black and white, is the easiest way to turn your party into murder hobos, where everybody, like, at the first sign of trouble just turtles up and kills anything nearby. Like, for a basic example, nobody pulls a gun on you for gaffing at a party unless you, like, gaff really severely, but otherwise you don't really have a chance to say, like, pretzels? I meant to say Pringles! So, basically most of my encounters like a two-strike system where, like, the situation will get worse if you fail, but it doesn't hit a failure state and gives the players a chance to come up with something else, maybe, to try to get out of the jam. Like, if they're sneaking past some guards and one of them makes a noise, the guards don't, like, immediately spot them, roll initiative. That's like I said, that's how you get murder hobos. Instead, the guards are like, what was that noise? You know, like Metal Gear Solid. Like, they don't notice Snake right away because he left some footprints. They start searching for them. So the guards change from being casual to being on high alert, and the players need to come up with a new plan. Like, do they try to continue to sneak even though they'd be at disadvantage now? Do they launch an ambush and try to take out the guards before they have a chance to call for more? Do they scarper and just pull the plug on the plan entirely? Does the druid turn into a cat and step out to try to say, oh, that's where the noise came from? Does the warlock step out and like, hey, hello, gentlemen, I seem to have gotten myself a bit lost, you know? If you can drill into your players' heads that there is always a way to fix the problem, then you and your players will have a lot more fun. That's my DMing advice in a nutshell. And finally, Gia Bryant asks, any chances you do long-form retrospectives of older TCGs or toy franchises? Retrospectives are huge on YouTube now, and I really enjoyed your Zoids video. The thing about that Zoids video is it took like a year to pull together. I would love to do retrospectives on other things, although the thing I want to do the retrospective on the most is sadly a video game that I currently have no method of getting gameplay for, and I'm not desperate enough to sail the high seas yet. But I would love a way to record footage for this game right here, which I think is like one of the most underappreciated games of all time to do a retrospective on. Although if there's other stuff that I've like featured on the channel that I've shown off that I could do a retrospective on, that might be neat too. They are certainly on my radar. And so, yeah, there we go. 50,000 subscribers, and that was a fun little Ask Me Anything. I have some other games that I want to talk about. I have a couple of things I want to work on. I do have a video about art and layout in the works. However, that has kind of been delayed because even though my art is going to be on some official cards now, the actual printing of those cards has been delayed for a very long time, so hopefully that will be solved soon. Apparently they've been sent off to the printer, so we'll see if we can get in anywhere with that. In the meantime, I do have some games I want to talk about. Like, I want to talk about the Pathfinder adventure card game for not really the greatest reasons. I think it has more problems than it has good ideas, but that's kind of what this channel here is for. It'll enable me to have a good conversation of things. We'll see if some more interesting stuff comes out in the future now that this country is finally starting to open up again, and you know, masks aren't as prominent a thing anymore. Maybe we'll finally get to have some more social experiences, get some good gameplay footage. But yeah, that is my 50,000 subscriber Ask Me Anything special, and until next time, this is Kohdok signing off.